Buenas tardes a todos. Les doy la cordial bienvenida a la clase de evaluación de los aprendizajes para compartir los parámetros de las secciones por videoconferencia. Las secciones se graban, pueden verlas nuevamente en la plataforma virtual. Les solicitamos que por favor silencien sus micrófonos y puedan activarlos cuando quieran hacer consultas o aportes con el permiso del docente. Le pedimos que mantengan su cámara activa. De no poder hacerlo, enviar su excusa por el chat de Zoom. De lo contrario, será retirado la sección y le serán restados puntos en la valoración del docente. Miro cómo moderador facilitar y apoyar en la parte técnica. Consultas por el chat, personal o general. Les exhorto a tener bolígrafo y papel para hacer sus anotaciones y aprovechar al máximo esta sección que tiene una duración de 1 hora. Bienvenidos.
Buenas tardes, Elizabeth.
Profe, buenas tardes, bienvenida.
Okay, guys, welcome to this 7th class. The topic that we're going to talk about today is part of the module, the last module, module number 5, self-assessment, co-evaluation, and hetero-evaluation. In this class, we're going to begin first with the prayer, as always. We're going to present the objective that we have for today's class. Then we're going to begin talking about these 3 aspects of evaluation: self-assessment, co-evaluation, and hetero-evaluation. Then we're going to talk about our what self-assessment means, self-knowledge, self-regulation, self-assessment. We're going to have a self-assessment example. We're going to have a practice. Then after that, we're going to continue talking about co-evaluation. We're going to talk about the benefits of co-evaluation. And then we're going to present another example, but in this case about this topic, co-evaluation. It's going to be a co-evaluation example. Then we're going to have a debate. We're going to finish talking about hetero-evaluation, valuing evaluation, and then we're going to have a discussion. And finally, we're going to have a wrap-up to finish the class. Well, thank you, Jesus, for this day. Thank you for our lives. Thank you for this class. Help my students and help me to transmit this knowledge and in the best and in the easiest way. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. The objective that we have for today's class is identify how to assess learning outcomes. So identify how to assess learning outcomes. This is the objective. First of all, let's talk about these 3 topics. We can summarize that the 3 of them are part of evaluation. Sometimes we focus on hetero-evaluation, but we forget about the first 2. The evaluation of competencies requires the development of the 3 independent processes of self-assessment, co-evaluation, and hetero-evaluation. Because if we focus only on one of them, we are going to ignore important aspects of the process of learning. Well, let's begin with self-assessment. Well, self-assessment can be focused on the way the person takes the criteria and evidence that comes from a matrix on different levels, and then different levels of mastery. And then we can see if the skills, if he or she has developed the skills, and then we can have the result. The result is that the person or the student can become manager of his or her own education. This should be included more in our classes, because most of the time we rely only on the teacher to evaluate if we have learned or not. We rarely focus on evaluating if we understood, if we are clear or not, asking a peer to see if he considers that we know about something or that we have developed certain skills. So self-assessment is part of this. So we can have at the end or as a result of this process of having a criteria, having some criteria and evidence, we can measure this content with a matrix with the levels of mastery. Then we see the skills, and then we can say that we have become managers of our own education. Then self-assessment has two central components: self-knowledge and self-regulation. Let's begin talking about self-knowledge. When we talk about self-knowledge, we are talking about a continuous reflective dialogue of each human being with himself that makes it possible to become aware of the skills that needs to be built and how this construction is going on or is going. So it means that when we evaluate ourselves, we don't have to focus only on a number or deliver something to be checked by the teacher or by another person. We need to make sure that during the process of learning something, we can master the topic. We can master the theory and the practice. So in that way, we develop this as part of our let's say our own style, our own learning style. It means that we can first focus on analyzing ourselves and then focus on others. Self-regulation is the systematic and deliberate intervention of to guide the construction of competencies according to a plan. It means that we need to visualize, as we have here the example, visualize the process where we are, and we need to be able to identify ourselves to regulate the guide that we can have or we can follow according to the topic to develop the competence that we want. So we need to develop a plan. For example, if my objective is to speak English fluently and feel 100% sure of what I'm saying in the language, my plan is that I need to focus on my career. I need to focus on my weaknesses in the language and work hard, practice more on those areas, and even look for extra help from maybe an institution or a tutor in order to achieve my goal. So probably in 1 or 2 years, I can be totally bilingual. I can master the career 100% in the language, etc. So I need to tell myself where I am. I need to be clear. I need to establish the points that I have to cover in order to master my skills, or the skills that I have to master in order to achieve my objectives. And I need to make my own plan, because each person has his or her own objective goals. Well, self-assessment. Okay. When we evaluate ourselves, we need to create a space of trust and acceptance within the educational institution so that the students can express themselves freely and spontaneously around their training. Well, it's important to develop this reliability from the students to help them feel comfortable and be able to express their ideas spontaneously and freely. They don't have to feel like under pressure to speak. Not like, no, I am going to say this because teacher likes me to talk in this way. No, they should be able to respectfully speak and talk about their opinions, explain their own examples, and in that way we can know, or they can know if they are right or if they are wrong. But if everybody in the classroom keeps quiet when you ask about questions, there are two ways: or they don't understand anything, or they understood everything. Most of the time we assume that they understood everything, but when there are topics where they have to explain themselves or they have to express their opinions, they should be able to speak and say their own ideas in order to evaluate if they are clear or not. Generate the habit in students to compare the achievements obtained with the proposed criteria. Most of the time, students compare themselves to see who got more points, who got less. And that is not the idea. The idea is to compare achievements. So what I have gotten, where do I have to work on more? So in this way, I know in my plan, my self objective, where I am. So this is the idea that we have to change in our students. Look for the way to check, compare with others, but not in terms of looking for a winner or a loser, no. Looking for a way to evaluate myself, where I am, and know where I have to work on more. Number 3, facilitate that the students themselves correct the errors by introducing the necessary changes. Okay, in our classroom, sometimes teachers, after an exam, maybe a monthly exam or a final exam, they have their students evaluate or correct each other's in the exam according to the guide that the teacher provides. But most of the time, they only want to play as a teacher. Like, I want to use my color pencil or my color pen with and write the points. But we should take it a little bit forward. We should have the students understand the answers that are correct, the answers that are the answers that were incorrect. They should understand why it's not that way and why is the way that it is. So when we have answers that, for example, okay, who had this, for example, the answer number 1, true or false, I don't know. No, true or false, no. Fill out the blanks. And number 1, they had to fill out an answer, and who didn't fill it out? Okay, they should raise their hand. Or who wrote another answer? What are the answers? Probably, maybe if it is a grammar exam, the answer was to evaluate the simple present tense of habits. So the person maybe didn't fill out with doesn't and use don't. She don't. And then you say, oh, well, if the person in the exam wrote don't is incorrect, because remember, when you're talking about the third person singular, you need to use the auxiliary does, and in negative is doesn't, etc., etc. So you explain, and everybody knows why it is incorrect and why is correct the answer. So when we have this space to evaluate each other's exams, or also when it is a speech, also could be like they have a rubric and they evaluate their classmates, then they should know what to evaluate. They should know why is correct, what is incorrect, etc. The next point is build in students the attitude of assuming self-assessment with responsibility and sincerity from the framework of the ethical life project. Of course, there are some students that have the culture, but, well, I would not say the culture. I would say they have the bad habit of looking for the opportunity to get, like, okay, what is my exam? Imagine that you have the students exchange exams to evaluate each other. So, what is my exam? Where is my exam? Okay, you have my exam. I have your exam. Okay, you try to give me more points. I will give you more points. So, this let's say, this is a part of the Panamanian corruption. Part of corruption, and it begins in that way. And if we don't pay attention to that, we will not teach values and the value of being responsible and sincere. So we need to clarify that they need to be honest with the evaluation, because we are going to evaluate the exam again. We are going to recheck that the answers are correct or incorrect and the points are correct, because we need to have them develop these values. So we need to create this attitude of being honest and don't play like, oh, I'm going to take advantage of the situation. No. So this can help us to develop values. Guide students in writing their self-assessments. So when we guide the students, to focus on their self-assessment is because we give them like a rubrics, or we give them a space where they can develop like a list of areas where they need to improve. But this is like self-assessment, self-evaluation. They need to be focused on, and they need to be sincere. And we need to guide them, make them questions. Like, for example, okay, we're going to evaluate how you did during this trimester. We're going to make a list of maybe 5 or 10 things and that you need to evaluate. Okay, let's divide it in 5 related to the topics, and 3 about values, and 2 about behavior. So in that way, we have the students focus on, they have inner evaluation, and then they can make sure that during the following trimester, they can work on those weaknesses and improve. Develop conditions with levels of proficiency so that students self-assess and improve. So, of course, as I mentioned before, we need to tell the students areas. We need to focus our objectives on specific areas that we should provide them, like academic. We also could include kind of extra in our classes, analyze their emotions or focus on their behavior. And in those areas where, when we divide their self-assessment on areas, then, and we focus on the opportunity on the next trimester to improve, we create the conditions, or we create the sensation in their minds to work with purpose. No work for a number. No, don't work for passing the subject. No, it's something that you are doing. Maybe will take time, but you are doing to change the mentality, change their conceptions of their self-learning, process in the language, in our case, because we're going to be English teachers. And this is something that will make the difference between you and the teacher, or that works only to collect grades or to collect numbers. We are trying to impact the students with creating this self-evaluation. Well, here we have an example. For example, for instance, here we have, it says student self-evaluation form, group skills performance. Well, in this case, it's about a group performance. Here we, with this rubric, we give them the scale. Excellent 4, very good 3, okay 2. Number 1 is needs to improve, and 0 is frequently experience difficulty. Okay, then we see the areas that they are going to focus. And there are 2 parts. This part where they have five areas to evaluate. And then the second part says complete the following unfinished sentences. My greatest strength from the above list is, and then they need to develop the skills I have to work on most from the list above is, and then they need to be able to experience that working in group is not only because I can give $1 or $2 and another person works for me. No, they need to be able to understand that they need to learn through the process or through the project. So in different areas, in this case, is in groups or in performing in front with other people. And this is something that needs to be clarified before they develop or they perform or deliver their group work. Well, and then they need to be able to know how they are going to evaluate themselves after. You cannot appear after they present their project and say like, okay, now fill out this, and they don't know. They don't know about it. No, you need to introduce this before they work or before they do their projects. You will see a great difference when you do this. Well, now here we're going to have a practice. I want you to have a screenshot, and you're going to upload this on the forum in the module number 5. You need to take this self-assessment mode test. Well, this is a module. This is part of the module topic. And the idea is that you do it as a student, not as a teacher. Take this self-assessment model and make your own according to your current situation. Well, you're going to share your answers on the forum. As you can see here, we have a circle where we have different areas. For example, number 1 on let's say this is like a clock. 12 at 12 it says I understand my learning goals. Okay, there are different levels, very much like me, quite like me, and a little like me. So you are going to present after you circle the areas where you feel you are in these different areas. You present you take a screenshot and you upload it on the forum. Well, let's continue with the second topic that we have for today, that is co-evaluation. Co-evaluation consists of strategies through which students value each other's skills according to previous defined criteria. It means that we can look at each other not in terms of competence, of competition, but in terms of peers that can help each other, that can support each other. So we need to begin the co-evaluation with this emphasis, because if you don't do that, it becomes trouble. It becomes problem. Why? I'm sorry. It becomes a problem because in our classrooms, we are going to have always students who are very competitive and they don't accept, and there are students that don't know how to manage their emotions, and they don't accept, for example, having less correct answers than others, especially the students that are accustomed to have 100 or having 5 in every assignment, or having all the points in all the tasks. So we need to begin, before we begin with the process, we need to clarify the rules. Probably write them on the board or project them if you are using the data, or you're presenting a PowerPoint presentation. You need to write it down or project them, or have them written somewhere, because they need to see the rules of co-evaluation. They need to be able to help each other. It's not like I am better than you. You don't know anything. And these kind of comments create problem, create trouble among the students. And we need to tell them that those comments are going to be or will represent discount on the next oral activity, or will be taken into consideration on the following attitude evaluation. So we need to clarify and tell them exactly this kind of comments that may happen if you don't tell them. And then the co-evaluation would be successful. So the students should be able to receive feedback from his or her peers. So regarding to the theory, or regarding to the practice. So this should be like, maybe we can create the environment where they feel like, okay, you're going to be you're going to be colleagues today. You're going to be all teachers, and you are helping each other. So you need to develop the environment previous they begin the co-evaluation. So it also requires the implementation of, for example, raise awareness among students about the importance of peer comments to improve performance and build suitability. So that's what I was mentioning. They need to be able to know that the idea of this activity is to improve and build suitability in the classroom, not discussion, no arguments, or have them get angry about this activity. Second, generate in the group a climate of trust and acceptance, and that allows free expression. Okay, they need to be able to know that each of them has the ability to analyze each other's performance according to the guidelines that you have provided them, and they have the right to raise their hand and ask any question. And you will listen to them, and each other also should listen so they can communicate better. You need to motivate toward the assumption of clear comment from a constructive perspective. It means that they need to make comments that will help his or her peer improve. You need to generate a communal recognition, also motivate at the end, you need to have them, for example, write a motivational comment on the corner on the exam, if they are evaluating each other's exam or if they are evaluating a speech. So in that way, you will hear very, very good results of this activity. So you need to eliminate criticism, bullying, and blame each others for their faults, for their results. So this is super important. Advise students on how to assess achievements and difficulties in their classmates, along with the language to be used. It means that you need to tell them that, for example, their classmates may have difficulties because they are good in other things. Maybe they got better grades because they are good in this subject, but they are not good in another subject. So you need to tell them about the differences among their classmates. Another important thing is that we need to tell the students that sometimes we had difficulties, but we have the opportunity to improve. If the student got, for example, if one of the students failed in the exam, and the student that is evaluating the exam begins telling like, oh, you failed, you didn't study, comments like that, you need to tell them that those comments will be out of place, and they will have to do extra homework or something like that if they make comments like that. If a student got bad grades in the exam, then write a very motivational message on top, on the corner of the exam. Then the student that is evaluating his peer will be able to write or think about something positive. And maybe you can give them phrases, positive phrases, examples. So this is how we can help them. Well, the next point, develop conditions to support co-evaluation and advise peers in their employment. Okay, well, this is what I just mentioned. We need to try to create an environment where everybody feels happy and cooperate with the development of others. What are the benefits? Here we have a list. Number one is that we can apply course concepts and skills to solve problems, because we can create like a debate. We can create also discussions about specific topics, and everybody would be part of a community when they would not be isolated students. These kind of activities also develop in our students their skills to collaborate with others toward a common goal. Because one of the most important problems that we have in the classrooms when we make groups is that some students work and the others don't. So we need to try to raise awareness among them. And of course, we probably will not get 100%, but we will raise awareness in the classroom and they will improve, because they're going to be more conscious about what is happening in the school. Number three, examine diverse perspectives and ideas. This is super important because we need to listen to each other's and respect each other's points of view. So debates, discussions, and this kind of activities where they know that not everybody is good at, for example, English, or not everybody is good at math, then they understand each other and they develop this value of respect. As number four, assume greater responsibility in their learning process. Of course, this is part of the process that we want to achieve. We want to make a change. We need to help the students become more conscious about their learning process. It's not because of grade, it's not because of their parents, it's because of themselves. So we need to sometimes take them to the future like project what could happen to them in the future if they work hard at school, look for examples of people that have been successful, that were in the same situation that they were. In this way, they are going to feel motivated. Probably we can bring interviews about people that have been under the same situation that they are right now, and they right now are successful. Apply objectives. Well, this is what I'm mentioning here is like an extra. The co-evaluation that we're talking about could be on maybe comparing themselves with a person that was one day in the past in their position, but now is in a better situation, and that can help them visualize that they can do the same. So this may be one activity that we can do once and again. We can do maybe once in the term, once in the trimester, or twice in the trimester, because this will help them motivate themselves to continue ahead. And not because they have to get a grade, not because they have to pass the subject, not because they have to please their parents. It's because they have to be committed with themselves. Apply objectives criteria to judge the quality of a task or performance. So they need to be able to know or analyze why they are doing something, and the quality of the performance, their own and others, so they can be clear where they are in the process of mastering the topic or mastering the content that they are talking about. Well, this is an example of a co-evaluation. Here, the name of the project is Water for Everyone. Here, the activity was to identify the different areas that they had to develop. And it was a group work where each other could evaluate or had to evaluate each other. So it's not like the whole group, it's not like, it's an internal co-evaluation in the group that prepare the project. I think this is the best solution to solve the problem of having students that don't want to work, and the responsible students who do the whole work because they don't want to get bad grades, or they don't want to fail in the project. So in my opinion, this is super because we can raise awareness of what they should do, what they are supposed to do, and what they should do, because sometimes students don't even know where they're going. They are there because their parents send them to school, and that's it. They have to stay there. But in this way, we can raise awareness of what purpose they have in life. Now, as we don't have any person in today's class, we have a debate. This debate is about our situation. Well, in this case, I'm going to tell you my point of view. The topic that we have here is Panamanian students always evaluate each other's in the classrooms. Support your answer. Well, I would say that according to my experience, I did this activity a few times, not a lot of times in my school experience. Probably the way we were guided to do peer work or peer evaluation or co-evaluation was not the best. So sometimes we were just playing to be teachers, and we, for example, in my case, I liked to grade. So for me, it was great. However, I always try to check very well that I was evaluating my classmate in the best way, because I didn't want to make a mistake because it was not my test. For example, in the case of exchanging tests in the classroom to evaluate the exams, or when I had to evaluate a classmate who was performing maybe about a topic, or delivering a speech in front about a topic. For me, it was very delicate. So I tried to be analyze very careful the areas where I had to evaluate my classmate. I think we should work harder on this. We as teachers should work harder on this tool that we create in the classroom, because besides teaching the subject that we are teaching, we need to work harder on developing these how can I say, these skills that are not academically, but are part of the values that we need to work in class. So instead of making a billboard or creating a cardboard where they write about the value, speak about the value, present examples, we can have them apply these values of responsibility. We need develop the value of cooperation, friendship, and they need to become more like a family, because sometimes our groups are divided into small groups inside the classroom, and it becomes hell when we mix them, when we get them out of their comfort zone, when they have to work with classmates that probably they have never talked to in 3 or 4 years that they have been together at school. And this is really, really bad, because they need to be able to know how to work with everybody. Because in life, they would have to experience that. Sometimes at work, you have to work with people that you don't like. Sometimes on the street, you have to be near people that you don't like. But you need to know how to deal with that. So values, co-evaluation helps us to develop skills that are beyond academic purposes. So I really recommend you to do this when you become a teacher, and be careful, just create the environment before, write everything, have the rules in front. They need to see. Remember, whatever you have to teach, the students need to see, need to listen, need to say, need to do. If you mix all these skills, they will learn it. They will learn it. And you can only say, because some people need to see. So complement the rules and the purposes of the activities with the information in front. They need to see. Well, so that's my advice. Create an environment where they are going to work, and in that way you will reduce the possibilities of problems among them and with you. Well, let's continue now with the next topic, that is the last one, is hetero-evaluation. The hetero-evaluation is an assessment of the competences of students by the teacher or teachers of the subject or training project. So this is the classical evaluation that we know. Or sometimes is based on a social organization or a company. Of course, this is when the students have already finished their school, or probably if they are applying to get a scholarship, there is a sponsor to provide them a scholarship to study in another country, or to study the career here in a private university, or in a special, or be part, or become part of a project. So this is the classical evaluation that we know. Well, things that we need to value. When we say value, it implies, valuing implies respect for the difference, discretion, and confidentiality in the information. A teacher, one of the things that we as teachers have to be very clear is that we should never compare students according to their evaluations. We should never, I remember in my school experience, sometimes teachers began to deliver the exams, our exams, or tests, and they say, okay, now let's begin. They began calling the people. Okay, up to here, all these people got 5. Okay, now let's continue. Bam, bam, bam. And another students, and they say up to here, they got 4. And then you and you got 3, and then the rest fail. Imagine, how would you feel? Imagine if you are a good student, but that day you had trouble at home, you were sick, I don't know, name it. There are many options or there are many situations that students can go through. And then you embarrass them trying to do this. I don't know, what is the purpose of this? So you need to always value their effort, we need to be discreet with the evaluations. They should not see the others' evaluations. They need to be focused on their own. And they should not be able to pay attention to numbers. They should be able to know if they master, if they have the competence. So in order to value the way that we have created to evaluate, we need to prepare the students to have a willingness to submit to the assessment of their competencies by the teacher, the institution, or the companies. For example, they need to sometimes we need to be clear that we are not machines, and we need to tell the students, like, okay, I deliver your exam, but you need to check if everything is okay, because if you have any complaint, you need to return it to me. I will check, and I will correct the exam. We should never be able to, we should never present in front of the students like, okay, that's your evaluation, I'm perfect, I'm Mr. or I am Mrs. Perfection, that's your evaluation, that's it. I don't accept complaints after. No, we need to be humble enough to tell the students that they need to check also their exams and be able to see if their answers were correct or not. Assess the formation of skills in students, taking as a reference the performance of these in the activities and problems like those of the work context. So we need to create the habit of having the students evaluate if they master, like present them levels of mastering something based on, that's why I love rubrics. because when you create a rubric, you can provide it to them and they can check if they are in the beginning of the process of learning the skill, in the middle, or if they are advanced, or they have already mastered the skill. So our evaluation needs to help them see or visualize themselves in the process of learning. The hetero evaluation has to be considered, consider the results of self-assessment and co-assessment. So we need to pay attention to that. We need to listen to the students and resolve their concerns regarding the assessment, avoiding verticality and imposition. We don't have to look at the students like you are under me. No, you need to look at the students as you are there as a guide, but you don't know everything. You always have, since the very first time, we need to tell the students that we don't know everything. We don't have the truth, the total truth. We know because we have studied, we have certain experience, but we don't know everything. There are topics that we don't master. We know a little about, but we don't master. So we cannot talk about that. We cannot teach that. We can teach what we study for, and we can teach what we have proofs or we have researched about. But we cannot teach something that we don't know. So if we begin our relationship with our students like that, our hetero evaluation will always be in a safe area where you can tell the students that you know a lot more than them because of your preparation, and you will try always to tell them as much information as you can, and you will try to do it in the best way. However, there are cases about areas that you don't know, and maybe you can get information after and explain better, because there are students that always ask you about things that are related but not centrally about our field. So in this case, we need to listen to the questions. Never tell the students like, oh, I don't know, I don't know what you're talking about. Search. No, I prefer to tell my students that, well, it's a good question. It's a good question. Let me search about it, or let's look for the answer. And in that moment, we open ourselves to be a person that is always looking for learning. You don't know everything. We need to understand that. I have, well, many years, studying English. And I can say I have 18 years, well, more than 18 years. I have been seriously studying English, like conscious about what I wanted, like 21 years. And I have never stopped. And I know I will never stop learning English. It's not my first language, and it's not my mother tongue. And I love to learn. I love to learn about new words and new concepts, differences, similarities. And you need to tell them, you need to develop curiosity on the students. So our hetero evaluation becomes more like a bond. We develop this connection with our students. Next, provide sufficient opportunities for students to achieve the expected accomplishments, taking into account their potential possibilities of the teacher and the institution. Well, we need to teach them that they have to establish their goals. They have to set their goals, and they need to develop their potentials. They need to explore all their skills in order to improve, because there are always opportunities to learn, always. always. Develop matrices and assessment instruments. It's important to provide them, like the rubrics, present the students their way of understanding our evaluation. We need to present them and explain to them. Periodically review the matrices techniques. The matrices and the techniques have to be checked by us before, and the assessment instruments also, because we need to adapt them to the groups. Remember that, and to the objectives that we have at the end of the trimester or the month, depending on how we're planning, in order to improve the quality of the process. So this is by according to Tobon. Finally, let's finish with this discussion. Is the current evaluation system in our country primarily focused on assessing competence? And does it adequately ensure the quality of the evaluation process? Well, we have two questions here. Is the current evaluation system in our country primarily focused on assessing competence? Well, I would say no. I would say no. According to my experience as a student and according to my experience as a teacher and as a professor, I would say no. Most of the time, our evaluation system is focused on collecting grades. I hate that. I hate that because we are here to impact people. Impact people requires more than teaching a lesson based on a book. We need to look for sources. We need to look for strategies. We need to look for experiences. This is the clue now. Experiences. Our students have to experience things. They need to go inside their own experience. For example, when we make these discussions about the situation that we live here in Panama, we go back to our experience, to our life. When we were in primary or elementary school or many years ago or some years ago. And we go there and look for the information and then we make a click. So we need to try to make our students do this in order to develop their competences. Does it adequately ensure the quality of the evaluation process? Well, I would say when we focus our evaluation on competence, everything changes because it has to be proved. For example, imagine that all our English teachers in the country had to go through an interview. If they don't pass the interview, if they don't master the language speaking, and they go through grammar test, phonic test, vocabulary test, and they would have this periodically maybe every 2 years. They have to update. They have to learn about maybe new techniques, or they have to update on certain areas. They have to go through another interview. Things would be better. Our English in Panama would be better because they would be forced to improve, look for improving, because we have many teachers that don't speak English and they are teaching there. So this affects the results. So I would say we need more evaluations focused on competence. Well, for today we have been talking about the necessity of more self-assessment and co-evaluation, because hetero-evaluation is doing so, but we need to raise more our students' awareness about they need to be more focused on where they are going, and they need to be committed with their learning process. And in the hetero evaluation, we need to be focused on explaining the students how we evaluate them, and we need to try to be fair and evaluate competences. This is the most important for us. Well, we are in the week number 7. Congratulations if you have gotten here, because you are about to finish. We need one more week for this module and we will be over. So remember to check your videos, read the articles that you have on the platform, and upload your evaluation, self-evaluation on the forum on the module number 5. Well, with this, we finish for today. Thank you very much for attending. See you next Saturday.
Profe, muchísimas gracias.